The tension in the room is thick before a single word is spoken, the kind of tension that comes from months of sleepless nights, unanswered texts, and arguments that never truly ended. A young mother sits on one side of the stage, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, eyes red not from anger alone, but from exhaustion. Across from her sits the baby's father, leaning forward, hands clasped, visibly frustrated yet desperate to be heard. The audience can sense it immediately. This isn't just about custody or schedules. This is about identity, control, fear, and the raw pain of feeling erased from your own child's life. When the words, "It's my baby too," are finally spoken, they don't come out calmly. They come out loaded with months of resentment, tears, and feeling shut out of moments that can never be replaced. The mother begins by explaining how her life changed the moment she found out she was pregnant, how everything she did from that point forward revolved around protecting her child. She describes doctor visits she attended alone, nights she spent worrying about finances, and mornings she woke up feeling sick and scared, wondering if she could do this by herself. Her voice shakes as she explains that trust was broken early on, that promises were made and not kept, and that each broken promise pushed her further into believing she had no choice but to take control. In her mind, she didn't push the father away. She stepped up because she felt abandoned. To her, being cautious isn't cruelty, it's survival. When the father finally speaks, the hurt in his voice is unmistakable. He says he never denied his child, never wanted to disappear, and never imagined he would have to fight just to hold his own baby. He talks about missing the birth, about seeing pictures online instead of being in the room, about finding out important milestones from other people. His frustration isn't just about visitation, it's about being treated like an outsider in a life he helped create. He admits he made mistakes, but insists that mistakes should not erase a parent. As he speaks, his voice cracks, not in anger, but in grief for moments he will never get back. Dr. Phil leans forward, his tone calm but firm, as he begins to peel back the layers of blame and defensiveness. He reminds both parents that this child did not ask to be born into conflict, did not choose broken communication or unresolved resentment. He points out that when adults turn a child into a battlefield, the child always loses, even if one parent feels like they're winning in the moment. He challenges the mother's belief that control equals safety, and the father's belief that anger will earn him access. The room grows quiet as he makes it clear that this is no longer about who is right. It's about what is right. As the conversation deepens, painful truths begin to surface. The mother admits she is terrified that if she lets go even a little, everything will fall apart. She confesses that her need for control comes from fear, not power. The father admits that his frustration sometimes comes out wrong, that his anger masks deep insecurity about whether he will ever truly be seen as a real parent. In this moment, the audience sees what's really happening. Two wounded people protecting themselves in ways that are slowly hurting the one person they both claim to love the most. Dr. Phil shifts the focus to accountability, asking hard questions that neither parent can easily avoid. He asks the mother whether she truly believes shutting the father out will make her child feel safer in the long run, or if it will eventually create confusion and resentment. He asks the father whether he has consistently shown up in ways that build trust rather than demand it. The questions land heavily, forcing both of them to sit with uncomfortable truths instead of rehearsed defenses. This isn't about winning an argument on television. It's about what happens when the cameras turn off and a child grows up asking why one parent wasn't there. The mother describes moments when the father failed to show up on time, canceled plans, or reacted emotionally when things didn't go his way. To her, these moments weren't small. They were proof that she couldn't afford to rely on him. She explains how every missed call reinforced her belief that she had to do everything alone. Her voice tightens as she says she doesn't hate him, she just doesn't trust him. And for her, trust isn't rebuilt with words or apologies. It's rebuilt with consistency over time, something she says she hasn't seen enough of. The father listens, visibly uncomfortable but not interrupting. When he responds, he acknowledges those failures without excuses, admitting that immaturity and pride played a role. He says he didn't realize how deeply those actions affected her until the door was already closed. He explains that being kept at a distance only made him more reactive, more emotional, and more afraid of being permanently cut out. He insists that he wants to grow, to learn how to co-parent peacefully, and to prove through action that he can be dependable even if it takes time. Dr. Phil emphasizes that parenting is not about perfection, but about repair. He explains that every parent will disappoint their child at some point, but what matters is the willingness to repair the damage and do better moving forward. He warns the mother that denying the father the opportunity to improve doesn't protect the child. It deprives the child of a chance to see growth, forgiveness, and accountability in action. At the same time, he makes it clear to the father that access to a child is not an entitlement. It is a responsibility that must be earned and maintained. As emotions rise again, the conversation turns to the child's future. Dr. Phil asks both parents to imagine their child at 18, sitting across from them, asking why things unfolded the way they did. He challenges them to think about what answer they would give without shifting blame. The question silences the room. In that moment, the fight stops being about control and starts being about legacy, the emotional inheritance they are creating with every decision they make now. The mother's defenses slowly begin to soften as she reflects on the idea of legacy. She admits she never imagined raising her child in a divided family, never pictured court dates and tense exchanges replacing what should have been shared moments of joy. She says that every decision she made was driven by love, but she now recognizes that love mixed with fear can become something rigid and isolating. For the first time, she acknowledges that her child deserves more than just protection. They deserve connection, stability, and the chance to form healthy bonds with both parents. The father speaks about the shame he carries, the constant feeling of having to prove his worth not only to the mother but to himself. He says being treated like a visitor in his child's life made him question whether his presence even mattered. He admits there were moments when he wanted to give up, not because he didn't care, but because the pain of rejection felt unbearable. Yet every time he considered stepping back, the thought of his child growing up believing he didn't fight was even more painful. Dr. Phil brings the discussion back to boundaries, explaining that cooperation does not mean surrendering control or ignoring past mistakes. He stresses that structure, clear expectations, and accountability can exist alongside compassion. He outlines how co-parenting requires both parents to stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other as partners in a shared mission. He reminds them that they are not co-parenting for their own comfort, but for the emotional health of a child who absorbs tension even when words are not spoken. The audience watches as the mother and father begin speaking to each other instead of past each other. The mother admits she has used access as leverage when she felt hurt, not realizing how damaging that pattern could be. The father admits he has used anger as armor, pushing instead of listening. These admissions don't erase the past, but they crack open the door to something new: honesty without accusation. For the first time, there is less shouting and more listening. As the conversation nears a turning point, Dr. Phil challenges both parents to make a decision. continue repeating the same cycle, or commit to a new way forward that prioritizes the child above ego, fear, and resentment. He makes it clear that change doesn't happen in one episode or one agreement, but it starts with a willingness to act differently today than you did yesterday. The weight of that responsibility settles in, and both parents seem to understand that what happens next will shape their child's emotional foundation for years to come. Dr. Phil introduces the idea of rebuilding trust through measurable actions rather than emotional promises. He explains that trust is not restored by saying the right things in a heated moment, but by showing reliability when emotions are low and no one is watching. He encourages the parents to agree on clear expectations, communication rules, and boundaries that protect the child from adult conflict. The goal, he says, is not to become friends, but to become functional co-parents who can coexist without turning every interaction into a power struggle. The mother expresses concern about letting go of control, admitting that it feels like stepping into uncertainty. She fears that if she relaxes even slightly, the structure she built will collapse. Dr. Phil responds by explaining that control rooted in fear often creates the very chaos it's meant to prevent. He reminds her that children benefit from seeing adults work through discomfort in healthy ways, rather than avoiding it altogether. Slowly, she begins to see that flexibility does not equal failure, and that shared responsibility can be a source of strength rather than threat. The father listens carefully as Dr. Phil lays out what accountability looks like in real life. He is told that being present means more than showing up physically. It means being emotionally regulated, respectful, and consistent. Dr. Phil makes it clear that any future access depends on demonstrated change, not emotional pleas. The father agrees, acknowledging that he has work to do and that earning trust will take time. For the first time, his determination feels grounded rather than reactive. As the discussion continues, the focus shifts to the child's emotional world. Dr. Phil explains how children internalize conflict, often blaming themselves when parents are at odds. He warns that unresolved parental resentment can show up later as anxiety, attachment issues, or difficulty trusting others. Both parents are visibly affected by this, realizing that their conflict extends far beyond the present moment. The idea that their pain could become their child's burden forces them to reconsider their choices. By the end of the segment, there is a noticeable shift in energy. The anger that once dominated the room has been replaced with cautious reflection. While nothing is magically resolved, both parents seem more aware of their roles in the situation. Dr. Phil emphasizes that awareness is the first step toward change, but action must follow. The question now is not whether they love their child, but whether they are willing to do the hard work required to love their child better.